Well, let's bring in Peter Herbert from London. He's a former lead counsel at the ICTR and a retired judge. Peter, good to have you on us for your analysis. So the fact that you've got US allies questioning now the legality of US actions and then potentially suspending intel sharing, what does that say for the US? Does it give them any pause for concern?
Well, thanks for having me. I'm actually in Nairobi, Kenya at the moment. But no, it's the international position is these attacks are almost certainly unlawful. The UN is not a signatory to the UN Convention on the Sea, but they said they'd abide by its terms. And you cannot, repeat, cannot attack vessels in international waters unless there's two conditions. One, you are following and tracking something from your own territorial waters in pursuit of vessels that are committing crimes. Or there is an immediate threat to loss of life of law enforcement officers. Neither of this is the case, and therefore there is absolutely no doubt that under international law, the US in these attacks is acting unlawfully, acting as a pirate, and it is committing extrajudicial killings in international waters, not only of Venezuelans maybe, but also of Colombians. And even Trump said these are suspected drug traffickers. So there is no intel. There's not one shred of evidence being produced from these boats, despite the US fleet being in that area. And you would expect, at the very least, if you're conducting unlawful operations, at least show some justification by producing some evidence. None has been produced.
You're very clear there. Well, what Donald Trump is, though, saying, his motivation for what he's doing, for these unilateral actions, is the protection of US citizens. I mean, can he use that as an excuse? Can he still act unilaterally?
I mean, US citizens have no more rights than anybody else. Venezuelan citizens, Colombian citizens have the right to life. And you cannot take life pretending to be protecting people who yourself are not serving. And the easiest way to address imported drugs is to have a campaign where you educate Americans not to take drugs, whether it's the recreational drugs of cocaine or methamphetamines, which are devastating US cities. And you can do that by legalizing, treating that as a health addiction, which it is, and diverting the huge resources that you use in the war on drugs to use it in a war on addiction, which is an addiction-driven problem. If you drop the price of drugs, nobody will import drugs across any border, let alone to the US. So Trump, like many politicians, has not got the courage to actually address the real problem, which is the addiction of the American people to recreational and hard drugs.
Exactly. Well, let me just ask you this then. What stops Donald Trump?
Well, the only thing that'll stop Donald Trump is possibly the legal measures in the ICC, International Criminal Court, possibly the public condemnation and the fact that even the Colombian president has said, actually, the boat you destroyed was not Venezuelan, it's Colombian. And you are committing huge human rights abuses, which one suspects are more about regime change in Venezuela and the resources of Venezuela has in oil than they are anything to do with drug cartels. This is the unlawful exercise of American power, as it was in Afghanistan and Iraq, where it's been conducted against Grenada in the Caribbean, previously Bay of Pigs, with a huge loss of life. And actually, under the pretext of American protection of American citizens. Let American citizens choose, get rid of this pirate president and return the Senate and Congress to a more liberal democracy, which is America should be.
Peter, you've been absolutely clear. Thank you so much for unpicking that situation for us. Peter Herbert, live for us, the former lead counsel at the ICTR and a retired judge.